Hi, I'm Sandy Goldberg from Antenna Audio, and welcome to the podcast series from Emory University's Carlos Museum. In each episode, we use an object from the museum's collection as a jumping-off point to begin a conversation. This time, we're looking at a statue of ultimate Hindu power. It's from 11th century India, and it depicts Vishnu in his ultimate form, from which all his avatars emanate. Now, avatar is a word that's being used a lot today, from television shows to video games and virtual reality. So to understand the origins of this concept, I spoke with two professors from Emory's Department of Religion, Lori Patton and Joyce Burkhalter-Flickiger. This idea of this ultimate form of Vishnu, what does that actually mean?
Well, it's a great question because what you see in this image is a high degree of complexity. In each of Vishnu's arms is a weapon, and these are weapons that are typical of Vishnu. In the many stories about him, you see a conch shell, you see a discus, you see a mace, you see many different kinds of forms. And in addition, what he's holding here are weapons from other deities as well. And what's interesting about this is that all of the different items that he holds in his hands show the forms he takes on Earth, called avatars, as well as the forms that other deities have. Now,
avatars, that's a pretty interesting word because it seems to be all over the popular culture now. What does avatar mean really in the true sense of the word?
Avatar literally means to cross down. Each of the items that this cosmic form of Vishnu is holding in his hands represents an avatar, or a crossing down, when God crosses down to save the world. And this is very typical of Vishnu, that he will take on a specific form to save something that's going wrong in the world and to save the world from destruction. So in this cosmic form, every single moment that he does that is being represented. So this is not one avatar. This is all of them put together.
Actually, in contemporary Indian parlance, when you use, that's an avatar of somebody other than Vishnu. In Vishnu, that word means very specifically this theological coming down to save the world from destruction. But Shiva, or the goddess, it means pretty much what it does in English, another form.
The first thing that I see when I look at it is just the most elegant form and the swaying of the hips. And, I just love that little pouch on the belly. I just think that's so beautiful. But I know that it's a little hard to make out what's going on with all the arms and everything. Could you just talk us through it a little bit?
Sure. First, what you see that Vishnu is clearly in a Tribhanga pose, which is a three-part pose, which you can see from the way his body is moving. Three-angled pose, yeah. And you also can see from all of his different arms that what he is projecting is not only all of the weapons of the avatars that he becomes, but also the weapons of other deities. With each of these arms is a statement of the power in the universe that deity represents, or that avatar represents. And that is very, very common, but usually a gentler form of Vishnu that is not so all-embracing would usually have fewer arms and also fewer actual weapons in his possession.
To me, it looks like the kinds of sculptures that are outside of a temple, and not the image that is worshipped in the Garbhagriha, or the inner sanctum of a temple. Do Hindus worship Vishnu in this form? I think it's very rare to worship any of the deities in their fullest, most ultimate form. And the Indian language term for it would be Vishvarupa.
Vishvarupa means literally all form. So this is Vishnu, all forms.
I would just say Vishvarupa has the connotations in colloquial Indian languages of being the deity in his or her most powerful form. That's a lot for humans to sustain. I mean, actually, humans can't sustain the deity in its most powerful form, and which is why I think that it's rare, we can't say never, in any Indian context. But it would be rare that this form was the form that is worshipped in the temple, the main form. But it's outside to remind viewers and devotees of a theology, really.
Now, when you say they can't, that humans can't sustain it, what actually do you mean by that? Is it just too powerful for them to even contemplate?
It's too powerful to them to have an intimate relationship with.
Oh, I see.
So in contemporary India, where devotion is the primary means through which one relates to a deity, that devotional relationship is intimate and personal. It's hard to have an intimate relationship with the deity in its most powerful form. And so they actually say, many Hindus say, the deity in his or her grace takes a form that we can relate to. But in Vishnu temples, we call it Vaishnava temples is the adjective. The inside form is almost always an avatara. So it would be Krishna or Ram.
Right. One of the things that Joyce said that is very powerful and is reflected as well in the ancient texts is this idea of a image being too much. It's also present in an ancient and very well-known Indian text called the Bhagavad Gita. And there you have beautiful verses where Arjuna, who's a warrior that has to decide about whether he wants to fight his cousins in a war, asks Krishna, who is an avatar but also his charioteer in the battle, whether he should fight. At one point, Arjuna is so inspired by what Krishna has to tell him about his own role as a warrior and following his own dharma in this war that he asks if he could take on his full form. If it would be helpful, I can read some verses from that.
Yeah, let's hear some lines. That'd be great.
This is Arjuna speaking to Krishna, the avatar of Vishnu, when he sees this form, which is terrifying. Warriors are said to be flying into Krishna's mouth like moths to a flame. It's a very powerful image. And he says to Krishna, "You are the highest abode of all the universe, the God in the beginning, the spirit of old. You are the knower and that which is to be known. All is pervaded by you, one of endless form." And then later, Arjuna is talking about his own experience of having seen Vishnu in this Vishvarupa form. And he says, "I have seen what has never before been seen. I am filled with delight. My mind is shaken with fear." People long for it. Even the gods long for it, but it's still...
But when you see it, you can't take it for long.
That's right. Yeah. And Arjuna, the great warrior Arjuna, had a hard time with it.
I thought we would show one more image of a multi-armed, and in this case, multi-headed Ganesh. I was in the South Indian city of Hyderabad in 2007 for the festival of Ganesh Chaturthi, where they make neighborhood images and worship him for 11 days. But this particular form is a 45-foot form of Ganesh, the biggest one, and actually the city government put a limit. It can't get any bigger than this because it's been getting bigger and bigger. Ganesh rarely takes this magnificent form. I have seen paintings of it and some sculptures, but again, not the form you worship. The form you worship of Ganesh is much more accessible. But this is also a temporary form for 11 days. And then it's immersed. Actually, in this case, they have to get a big crane to lift it up out of its place and put it on a semi-truck to carry to the local lake. And they immerse it. So this also is a temporary form that they can't really sustain. In this case, it's the heads of many of the major deities. And so again, it's that form that his Vishvarupa encompasses all forms.
Vishnu is the deity of avatars. Other Hindu deities also have avatars, but what one knows about Vishnu is that he does this. And so there's a kind of connection and almost intimacy in many different stories about Vishnu. Seeing this with all of his stories, it's not as intimate an image, and in a way you're showing the world that you can transcend even your own avatar. And that's something you see in virtual reality conversations all the time, right? Can your avatar change? Can you transcend your own avatar in a particular way? There's a beautiful story about Krishna, who is also an avatar of Vishnu, who has many stories about him as a baby who has superhuman powers that people only discover over time, and everyone loves him, and then you suddenly discover these powers. One of the stories is he runs away and plays with dirt in his mouth, and
when he's a toddler.
And he's a very small boy. And when his mother chases after him and discovers this and opens his mouth and tries to get the dirt out, as mothers are wont to do, she sees not the dirt, but the whole of the universe. So once again, and she then understands who he is at that moment, and lo and behold, becomes a devotee. And so there's this wonderful moment of the juxtaposition of the child and the universe inside his mouth. And that also signals the same kind of thing that this image would.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much. So I think people should come to the Carlos, have a look at this sculpture, which is almost always on view, and approach it carefully.
That's right. Be reminded of who God really is. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay, well, thank you both
thank you
very much.
Very,
very interesting. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
Okay. Lori Patton was reading from her new translation of the Bhagavad Gita. It was published by Penguin Classics in 2008.